What kind of move could possibly make Yujiro look so shocked? It turns out Baki used his demon brain to mimic the Triceratops fist. Seeing this technique, Yujiro's face softened with a gentle expression. It's clear that Baki's move has completely ignited his fighting spirit. Even the bystanders watching from the sidelines can see it plain as day. Gradually, as Baki's figure starts to blur, what appears before Yujiro now has transformed into a real Triceratops. Yujiro had always dreamed of fighting a dinosaur. Now his son has finally made that dream come true. Then Yujiro slowly raised both his arms. He's ready to take on this massive beast's attack. The next moment, Baki pushed off hard with his feet. His whole body shot toward Yujiro like a bullet. The tremendous impact force made Yujiro stagger backwards. Right now Baki looks just like a real Triceratops, wrestling with Yujiro in a test of strength. Even though they crashed into cars on the street, neither of them showed any sign of stopping. Everyone who witnessed this scene was stunned. This intense battle could truly be called a clash of titans. Meanwhile, high above in the city sky, Pickle was also quietly observing this father-son battle. Finally, Yujiro had enough fun. He started mocking Baki's form boxing for having too many flaws. Imitation is just imitation. It can never match the full power of the original. Next, Yujiro decided to show Baki what real form boxing looks like. You could see Yujiro strike a bear paw stance. Next came the praying mantis technique. Finally the crane pose. But none of that was the main event. Then Yujiro brought his hands together and struck the laser rain pose from those viral dances. Baki was completely dumbfounded. Of course, Yujiro totally made up this whole routine. The next second, Yujiro forcefully pressed his fists downward, instantly tearing his shirt to shreds. Before anyone could react, Yujiro's body began glowing with blinding white light. Immediately an invisible current spread out in all directions. The light faded, and the legendary demon back appeared before everyone's eyes. What Yujiro was mimicking was himself, because he honestly couldn't think of anything in this world stronger than him. Then Yujiro threw a fierce punch into the air. Instantly an invisible blast shot toward Baki. But Yujiro's show was just getting started. Just a simple spinning kick looked like it could tear through space itself. Everything Yujiro was doing was just showing off his strength. He totally stole the spotlight. Now the real fight between them could finally begin. Baki knocked Yujiro unconscious with a single punch. However, just as Yujiro was about to fall, he suddenly snapped his eyes wide open and steadied himself in a really bizarre pose. That was close. Yujiro almost went down to this kid. After getting back up, Yujiro couldn't help but praise the power behind Baki's punch. What a good son Yujiro has. Come here and let daddy pat your head. Come here and let me pat your head. We're in the middle of a fight. No way, I want to do it right now. After hearing his father's words, Baki inexplicably started tearing up. Even he didn't understand why one caring word from his father could make him feel such warmth he'd never experienced before. In that moment, 15 centimeters below the young man's collarbone, he suddenly felt an invisible sharp pain. Tears poured down like a waterfall that couldn't be stopped. This is so moving. Sob, I can't handle this. Getting praise from his father, something so ordinary. This 18-year-old had never experienced it before. However, this sudden happiness didn't last long. Even though Baki's heart really wanted to accept his father's love, when Yujiro's big hand was about to come down, Baki still dodged away. He couldn't bring himself to have an emotional moment in the middle of their father-son duel, but he was still too naive. Nobody could stop Yujiro from doing what he wanted. Before Baki could react, Yujiro pulled him into a bear hug. No matter how hard Baki struggled, he couldn't break free from Yujiro's embrace. He could only let his father's big hand rest on his head. Tears of humiliation burst from his eyes. Looks like Yujiro really is a loving father. But soon Baki started fighting back. Right now he was like a toy, being played with however Yujiro wanted. Finally Yujiro had enough fun. He suddenly flung Baki away, and Baki spun like a kite, with its string cut. After spinning 25,000 times in the air, he finally managed to land. But what greeted him was another one of Yujiro's loving kicks. Baki was sent flying, until he crashed hard into the concrete and barely stopped. But before he could get up, Yujiro was already standing in front of him. Then came another kick to the chin, launching him straight into the sky. Baki was completely dazed now. Facing Yujiro's attacks, he had absolutely no power to fight back. He could only get beaten down by his father. Looking at Baki lying motionless on the ground, Yujiro said he'd had a great time, but now it was time to end this game. However, before he could make a move, suddenly a powerful presence swept over them. Looking back, the prehistoric man Pickle had appeared. Could he also want to interfere in this father-son battle? Yujiro Hanma never saw this coming. The caveman Pickle was actually trying to get in on this father-son showdown. Seeing this made Yujiro even more pumped up. He'd been dying to throw down with Pickle, but before he could make his move, Baki landed a solid punch right to Pickle's face. The massive impact knocked Pickle's back teeth clean out. This punch completely set Pickle off. He touched his injured teeth, but just as he was about to lose it, he realized Baki was even angrier than he was. Baki wouldn't let anyone interfere with their father-son battle. Even though Pickle couldn't understand human speech, he still felt the scolding from Baki's expression. This is an unspoken rule of nature. When two male lions fight for dominance, other lions stay out of it. Understanding what Baki meant, Pickle quietly walked aside and sat down. The father-son battle between Baki and Yujiro resumed. Baki, who had just been knocked down, charged at Yujiro once again, but this time it only took 0.2 seconds, and Baki was the one getting hit. Turns out Yujiro had already predicted Baki's attack. At this point Yujiro was running out of patience, but when he tried to end the fight with one kick, he didn't expect Baki to dodge it. Seeing this, Yujiro threw another kick at Baki's head. The terrifying force stirred up thick dust clouds, but Yujiro's kick completely missed. When the dust settled, Baki appeared completely unharmed in front of Yujiro, and his hands were still in his pockets. Baki was actually planning to use the quick draw technique to settle things with Yujiro. Seeing this, Yujiro also put his hands in his pockets. He walked up to Baki. This kind of duel was just like a Wild West gunslinger showdown. Whoever could punch faster would win this duel. The fighting spirit radiating from both of them was making the air around them distort. In this moment, time seemed to stand still, but right then, the sneaky Yujiro made a suggestion. He held out his hand and said he'd do the countdown. After 5 seconds, both would start punching, but before Baki could agree, Yujiro's fingers had already started counting down.
4, 1.
When the countdown ended, Baki didn't choose to pull his hand from his pocket. Instead, he kept his hand position unchanged and quickly ducked down to achieve the quick draw effect. But just when Baki thought he had it in the bag, he didn't expect this old fox Yujiro to play dirty, using his free hand to attack him. Truly the most cunning creature on earth. He really knows how to mess with his own son. But Baki wasn't going down easy. He quickly kicked twice, hitting Yujiro's chin. Before Yujiro could react, Baki swiftly flipped onto his back, using a grappling technique called Tiger King, pinning him hard to the ground. The combo was flawless. This sequence of moves left Oliva, who was watching from nearby, completely shocked. Even though you're pretty strong, Baki, taking down Yujiro Hanma isn't gonna be that easy.
Don't pull this shit on me, Dad! I know there's no way you're letting this end!
I absolutely won't accept this. Fight back already. Damn it. But suddenly Baki's eyes went wide. The pinned Yujiro actually gave an okay sign. Baki's words had completely ignited Yujiro's fighting spirit. He raised his right hand, then clenched it tight and slammed it into the ground, with the father and son at the center. A massive shockwave spread for hundreds of meters. Yujiro had actually driven his fist into the ground before Baki could react. Yujiro's fist came attacking from underground, landing a solid hit to Baki's abdomen. Baki never would have imagined he'd get sent flying by a punch coming from underground. As Baki got back up, scalding hot liquid kept streaming down his pants. Even though he'd wet himself, he hadn't lost the courage to fight Yujiro. Baki threw a heavy kick toward Yujiro, though his opponent easily dodged it. He still splashed the scalding liquid all over Yujiro. Finally, Yujiro had had enough. He kicked right at Baki's vital spot. The powerful force sent Baki flying. At the same time, Yujiro struck the signature Hanma family crouch pose, and Baki quickly adjusted his form. The moment he hit the ground, he took the same crouch pose as Yujiro. The student has learned well. Seeing this, Yujiro decided to awaken the Hanma blood within Baki. He raised both arms high, revealing his back muscles that looked like a demon's face. Yujiro went all out, throwing a devastating punch at Baki's abdomen. The terrifying force launched Baki into the air. He didn't stop until he crashed into a car on the roadside, but Yujiro's assault wasn't over. Another punch flipped the entire car over. At this point, Baki had completely lost consciousness, and this is the only way to awaken the Hanma blood. Only by constantly dancing on the edge of death can the demon back of the Hanma clan awaken. Turns out Yujiro Hanma really isn't from this planet. No wonder he's so incredibly strong. When Baki was beaten to within an inch of his life by Yujiro, the true identity of the Hanma family finally came to light. Inside an ancient Egyptian pyramid, archaeologists discovered on the stone walls a relief carving of a humanoid demon's back. This person was Yujiro Hanma's father, Yujiro Hanma, the legendary man who couldn't be killed even by nuclear bombs. And now with his demon back fully manifested, Yujiro had already beaten Baki until he lost control of his bowels, but he still didn't stop his assault, because right now the Hanma bloodline within Baki hadn't fully awakened yet. Just as Baki was about to be killed by Yujiro, something miraculous happened. Baki's head suddenly emitted a blinding white light. Then the muscles on his back began to transform. In less than 2.5 seconds, a miniature version of the demon back appeared before everyone's eyes. Then Baki struggled to get back on his feet, but when he looked up at his father, his fighting spirit instantly vanished, because he knew perfectly well that with his current abilities, he couldn't possibly defeat Yujiro. However, just as he was about to give up, Yujiro suddenly showed an expression of fear. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. When Baki followed Yujiro's gaze, a powerful phantom figure appeared before them, and this person was Baki's grandfather, Yujiro Hanma.
Yujiro Hanma? Are you my grandpa? You haven't changed.
Yujiro told Baki he believed his son also had the power to defeat his father. Does this mean Yujiro once defeated Yujiro too? Tokugawa was so shocked he couldn't speak, but he still slowly recounted Yuichiro's origins. Legend has it that during the Battle of Okinawa in World War II, the United States dropped tens of thousands of tons of bombs on a deserted island, and all of this was just to deal with one man, Yuichiro Hanma. They deployed naval warships and fighter jets for 25 hours of continuous bombing on the island, until the entire island was basically leveled. Only then did the US send troops to confirm if Yuichiro was dead, but what they didn't expect was Yuichiro, who should have been eliminated, appeared completely unharmed before the soldiers. Even his pants weren't damaged. General MacArthur was furious when he heard this news. To completely eliminate this guy, General MacArthur requested from his superiors permission to use nuclear weapons, but the day before the nuclear strike, the commanding officer who received the execution order was taken out by Yuichiro. However, after eliminating their leader, Yuichiro didn't rush to leave. Instead, he walked alone onto the deck, surrounded more than 2,000 soldiers, and wiped them all out in 2.5 minutes. No wonder people say the Hanma alien defeated the entire United States. The scene shifts. Yujiro looked around. After confirming that Yuichiro had disappeared, Yujiro showed a smug expression again, because he remembered Yuichiro's famous finishing move. Although Yujiro really hated his old man, even Yujiro couldn't help but give this technique some praise.
Long ago, the United States Marine Corps. It's called.
This is unbelievable. Baki was being spun around by Yujiro, like human nunchucks, under the rapid centrifugal force. All the blood in Baki's body rushed to his brain, with nowhere to go. It could only spray out from Baki's 7 orifices. At this point, Baki's world was covered in blood red. This terrifying scene sent the spectators running in all directions, within a 10-kilometer radius. No one dared to get close, but even so, Yujiro still showed no mercy. Gradually, a semi-transparent dress, formed by Baki, appeared on his body. Even Oliva was shocked by this sight. He had once swung Baki around like a towel, but could never reach this level. Suddenly Oliva seemed to realize something terrifying. That's right, Yujiro was planning to use Baki as a weapon.
The car, his father.
But Yujiro still wasn't satisfied. He grabbed Baki again and slammed him hard into the car. Truly worthy of the Hanma alien, any normal person would be done for. But Yujiro felt this still wasn't enough. This level wasn't sufficient to fully awaken Baki. Finally, through repeated impacts, the Hanma blood within Baki began to gradually awaken. When he stood on the ground again, Baki had recovered from the damage of the dress technique. Now father and son held hands tightly, as if they could go shopping together the next moment. And Baki had prepared a special gift for Yujiro. When Yujiro opened his palm, he found it was a tiny figure. Baki sure stole the show. Yujiro Hanma actually shed tears. He never saw this coming. Baki's power became incredibly strong after awakening his Hanma bloodline. Even though he had already unleashed his demon back, he still felt so powerless against Baki. But just moments ago, Baki was being swung around like nunchucks. Yujiro was gripping him and spinning him non-stop. The violent shaking sent all his blood rushing to his head, with nowhere else to go. It finally spurted out from his face. Gradually, a translucent coating appeared on Yujiro's body, made entirely of Baki. Oliva was completely stunned by this scene. He used to swing Baki around like a towel before, but he could never use him like a tool like this. Suddenly, Oliva seemed to realize something terrifying. He watched as Yujiro stopped swinging. Baki had completely lost all ability to resist.
Protect yourself. Protect your body. If you call yourself a Hanma, don't die.
The violent impact flipped the entire truck over, but Yujiro had no intention of stopping there. He grabbed Baki and slammed him into the vehicle again. That's the Hanma family for you. Anyone else would be dead by now. But Yujiro felt this wasn't nearly enough. This level of attack alone wasn't enough to awaken the Hanma blood in Baki. Finally, after repeated impacts, the Hanma bloodline in Baki began to slowly awaken. Everything before his eyes became crystal clear. Baki fully recovered from the damage of being used as clothing. Now father and son gripped each other's hands tightly. This scene could truly be called touching. But just then, Baki said he had prepared a special gift for Yujiro, but when Yujiro opened his palm, he was shocked.
You call giving me this?
It's a samurai.
Yujiro was absolutely furious. He never imagined that while being slammed around, Baki had crafted a doll from car parts. But none of that mattered now. Since Baki's Hanma bloodline had awakened, he decided to go all out. But from Baki's perspective, Yujiro's movements looked like slow motion. No matter how Yujiro attacked, Baki could counter instantly. With just one punch, Yujiro was sent flying by Baki's strike. Before Yujiro could catch his breath, Baki's next attack was already coming. The tables had completely turned. Yujiro who stood at the pinnacle, hadn't felt this sensation in ages, because he was just too powerful, so much so that on his path to getting stronger, his desire had gradually faded, but now finally appeared a man, who could actually hurt him, even though that man was his own son. Yujiro had reached a state of pure excitement. Facing Baki's challenge, he suddenly stepped forward, and launched a powerful kick at Baki, but the current Baki was far beyond what Yujiro could match. Baki leaped high into the air, then like a battle axe, came down, straight at Yujiro's face. Such a terrifying blow sent Yujiro crashing to the ground. The world's strongest creature had finally fallen. But right then, Baki's instincts kicked in again, because he knew this fight couldn't end this easily. Yujiro steadied himself, in an extremely bizarre posture. Seeing Baki grow so rapidly, Yujiro felt incredibly proud. He leaped up and faced Baki directly. Now their real battle was about to begin. Baki's face began to melt, then his entire body. In this moment, Baki felt unprecedented power. His hair stood up just like Yujiro's. The next second, Baki pushed off hard, and instantly appeared in front of Yujiro.
I'll be the one to take care of you.
These two grown men are taking forever to fight,
I can't stand to watch. It's so darn tedious.
with Koju pushing them on. The father and son duel kicks off again. We see Yujiro making the first move against Baki, but Baki easily dodges with a quick turn. Seeing this makes Yujiro even more excited. He swings his fist again, aiming for Baki's face. Surprisingly, Baki deflects it with just one finger. Everyone watching is completely shocked. The technique Baki just used is the traditional Japanese martial art, Aikido. Yujiro spins around and kicks at Baki again. The terrifying power instantly makes the ground beneath Baki's feet crack. Yujiro breaks into a smile. Now their duel is truly beginning. Then Baki kicks out with lightning speed, and grabs Yujiro's hair with his toes, then yanks down hard. But for Hanma Yujiro, this dirty trick has absolutely no effect on him. Then Yujiro sidesteps and breaks free. Now it's Yujiro's turn to counterattack. We see Yujiro unleashing a vicious kick at the airborne Baki, but Baki's reflexes are even faster. Not only does he dodge this deadly strike, but he also clings like a monkey to Yujiro's arm. Yujiro swings his arm with force, sending Baki flying. Due to the powerful momentum, Baki can't stop his forward rush. He flies hundreds of meters before barely managing to steady himself. But when Baki turns around, Yujiro has already appeared behind Koju. For this woman who made Baki stronger, Yujiro expresses his deep gratitude. But before Koju can snap out of her shock, the father and son's battle starts up again. Both men slam their fists hard into each other's faces, but in front of his beloved woman. Clearly Baki's punch has the upper hand. Meanwhile, the plaza has gathered countless onlookers. Everyone's waiting to see how this father-son showdown will end. Yujiro lands a brutal kick to Baki's stomach, but the moment Baki hits the ground, Yujiro's attack comes again. At the critical moment, Baki crosses his arms to block this devastating blow. Then Baki leaps into the air and flips to sit on Yujiro's neck. Right now, the two of them look just like a father taking his son for a walk. Yujiro carries Baki as they quietly move forward. Baki strokes Yujiro's hair. This is a feeling he's never experienced before, but beautiful moments are always fleeting. Baki jumps down from Yujiro's back, then he suddenly grabs Yujiro around the waist, and slams him hard toward the ground behind them. Yujiro gets up in a handstand. For him, Baki's attacks are still nowhere near enough. We see Yujiro spread his arms wide, then slam down hard on Baki's head. With just one hit, Baki's pupils dilate and lose focus. Images of his mother's death flash through his mind, but Yujiro's assault doesn't stop. The massive impact distorts Baki's face completely. At this point, Baki has completely lost his hearing. He can't hear a word Yujiro is saying, but Yujiro shapes Baki's hand into a fist. He wants Baki to abandon all distractions, and focus all his power into his fist. Although Baki can't hear what his father is saying, he still clenches his fist, and takes his fighting stance again. Then the ground beneath Baki's feet cracks. Yujiro also puts everything else out of his mind. The two rush toward each other, this strike carrying their full power. Seems like it could conquer anything in the world. This is what a real man's fight looks like. Both men throw all technique out the window, going all out in pure combat. At this moment, time seems to stand still. No one knows how much these two have sacrificed in this battle, but one thing's for sure, they're both absolutely loving this fight. Both men's fists connect with each other's chins simultaneously. The violent impact creates a powerful sonic boom, with the two fighters as the center. Everything within dozens of meters is engulfed in brilliant white light. At this moment, neither can feel any pain, only their fists continue searching for more effective angles of attack, while their feet keep seeking powerful positioning. Meanwhile, Jack, watching this battle on TV, finally can't contain himself. I can do that too. Old man. Finally, Yujiro slowly spreads his arms wide. Even facing Baki's storm-like barrage of attacks, he no longer defends, just purely enjoying the pleasure these strikes bring him. Baki keeps swinging his fists, hitting Yujiro's body. Now his eyes can't see, and his ears can't hear, but he can feel the sensation of his fists, striking his father's body. Swinging his numb fists with everything he's got, is the only connection left between him and his father. Suddenly Yujiro embraces Baki, looking at him with a gentle expression, but the next second, Yujiro uses the same technique that killed Emi to defeat Baki. As Yujiro releases his grip, Baki crashes heavily to the ground, completely losing consciousness. Could this father-son battle that lasted for hours really end with Baki's defeat after all?